It is the morning of October 7th, and it was a little chilly last night, so I'm kind of bundled up in here this morning. We're at the end of, going to do the end of the chapter I was on last time. We're on about page 113 of a manuscript that is about 133 pages long. So we're coming down to the end, and a lot of stuff happened. This is all the middle to the end of 2023. We're still in June of 2023, and by the end of 2023, all kinds of things had happened. So we'll just see how this goes. And let's see, it was in the middle of this chapter. I mentioned last time that I had realized that, to blow my own horn, literally, that it occurred to me that I might be one of very few people who is saying prayers for, from whatever religion, another species of mankind. If you're not already doing it, add them to your prayer list. Just as a, as another category. And I feel that the things that they're telling me, as we'll get to in this manuscript, are a collaboration. So that's a fascinating possibility. And if you're new to the channel, most people are not. Thanks for sticking around, those of you who have been here for a while. There's two things going on. One is to share the experiences that I'm having, and the other is to present the writings of the Baha'i faith in their pure form, which is when I quote them, that's what I'm doing. And the reason that I do that is not to try to convince anyone of anything, but to let you know what these writings have to say about these subjects. That's it. Baha'is do not try to change anybody's mind. We're forbidden to preach, forbidden to proselytize. And I got to thinking about that just this morning. And what that means is I can share with you things like this, but all that I'm going to be doing, let's see. Here, that's the trouble with phones. I'm an old guy. I hate to be on lists. I'll check those later because the phone keeps interrupting you. Where was I? Oh, Baha'is don't try to save people. They don't try to convert them. And I was thinking about that. And if somebody is physically drowning, you can pull them out of the water. But spiritually, you can't say, oh, I saved this person, because the second you do that, the I comes in and the selfishness derails everything. And so I can only save myself. I can't save you. You don't need saving. But I know that I do, and I am the only guy that can save me. The same goes for everybody else. So I can share what information I know and what I think I know, and if that connects with you, then use it in whatever way you please. And so that's probably why Baha'is don't try to change anybody else's mind about anything. Then there's another aspect to that. I've just started reading, and maybe you can see it over my shoulder. My screen's gone black, so I don't know what I can see behind me and what I can't. Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent. And I'm on about page 50, and he started talking about remote viewing and how that can only be used for good purposes, and how that may have been much more relied on in the early days of the evolution of humans, before language became prominent. That you would have to rely on this sixth sense because you couldn't communicate so much stuff verbally. And it all kind of connected with me that if you're going to do something like that and you want to raise your consciousness so that you can remote view and interact with, as the SETI 5 people say, beings in other places or of other species. You got to take yourself out of it. And so the self is the thing to be saved from in all of these things that you might want to do. For anyone interested in mysticism, Baha'u'llah has a very short, tiny book. Maybe I'll show you on here sometime. The 7 Valleys and the 4 Valleys. It's all about mysticism. And there's one valley. This is the Valley of Absolute Nothingness, which is where your love for the beloved of God, the love for the station of the messenger of God, burns away everything of yourself. And that may be the thing you're going for when you're trying to get away from yourself so you can do all of these other things with your mind. Or maybe not. So let's go on from here. This is what I wrote. So let's get back down to very small stuff and see if there's anything in here that you have heard or that would help you if you're dealing with what I'm dealing with. Okay, next, I entered this in my journal. Last night, Tuesday, June 14th, 2023, at 10:30 p.m. It was a very quiet evening until a dog began barking at the edge of the cornfield west of my neighbor's property, about 50 yards away, I guess. And that's 50 yards away from right here. There should not be a dog there. It quickly became a woofy conversation, possibly between 3 dogs, and the barks seemed to go around in a circle. Then came a deep baritone bark with lots of voice overtones that mid-bark, in the middle of it, climbed oddly back up into the normal mid-range tones that I had been hearing. And it literally sounded like this: woof woof, woof woof, woof woof, woof woof, woof woof, woof woof. And then it was woof woof, woof woof, woof woof. Oddest thing I had ever heard. It was not, dogs do not do that and cannot do that. Also, each bark was comprised of 3 woofs. Each woof was a different note, and all the barks from each dog were the identical 3 notes. I said out loud by way of hello, Allahu Akbar, which is God is most glorious. Instantly the barking stopped and nothing else was heard. I may have mentioned that dogs don't necessarily go silent just because they hear a human voice. My little dog doesn't, that's for sure. If one wants a dog to stop barking, one might need to yell. More than once sometimes. It has happened to me, maybe to you too. Not long after this, as I sat on the front porch of the stone house after everyone else had gone to bed, I heard maybe 4 very slow, and I didn't write it, but I'll tell you, very heavy footsteps come up the edge of the driveway in front of the stone house, crunching as they came. There then came a loud stick snap, all evenly spaced. I have since wondered how it found a stick to step on in time with its strides. The night was dark. I had no lights on outside. This took a full minute, roughly that slow, one at a time. And I said aloud, "Hi, glad you are here." I heard nothing else, and after a few minutes, I went inside. Later, maybe another night, I was awakened by hearing a large tree limb hit the ground in the park. I thought someone had pounded on the wall of the house, but I am pretty sure it was the limb, very heavy. My neighbors also lost a tree limb. This could be absorbed water weight causing the dead limb to fall, but there was no storm. In recent weeks, there had been numerous borderline events that made me wonder if some were Sabe related or just my imagination. Now those steps, I was sitting outside on the porch, and it was a thud, and then a closer thud, and then a closer thud. Very thoughtful, very premeditated, and then a closer thud, and then a snap. And I'm sitting there, and this is not very far away from I'm sitting in the dark, obviously coming up the driveway towards me. I wish they would do these things over and over. I wish they would repeat what they do, but they never seem to. I mean, I would love to have that happen again. The next part is particularly significant to me. Two things happened. On July 22nd, 2023, I wrote in the journal, quote, I let the forest people know that if they would give me a sign that I knew was from them, I would play my guitar on the deck for them. That was a few days ago, after I had expressed how joyful it made me to realize that we might be collaborating regarding the writings, as I've just told you. I had told them by saying out loud to the night on the deck of the lodge where we are now, yes, just like a crazy person, that it made me feel spiritually joyful that this collaboration was occurring. And I had a powerful feeling at that moment. It was like a light in my soul. Frankly, I can't say if the joyful feeling came totally from within or if it was a feeling instilled from without, a response of sorts, perhaps. Many people describe suddenly feeling a sense of well-being when in the presence of these people. I am telling you because I have only had such a feeling a very few times, and always at very important moments in my life. My journal continues. I mentioned this to them at the beginning of a walk last evening, 7/21/23, at about 8 p.m., sun far in the west. After the walk had begun, I mentioned it again at the key shed, where I rearranged and rephotographed the keys, which you saw in the previous episode. I didn't bring Khaleesi, my little dog, the little guy you've seen if you've seen the last few episodes, because it was too close to sunset. Raccoons and coyotes start to patrol at sunset, and because she thinks she is 10 feet tall and bulletproof, she could get herself hurt. I decided to just walk to the top of the hill and see how I felt. At the bottom of that hill, I had a peaceful interaction with a large doe near the salt block. And then, as I was walking up the hill, almost at the top, 20 yards beyond the turtle shell spot and 40 yards beyond the 90-degree tree break, both of which I've shown you photos of before, I found the hide of a raccoon, turned inside out, with just the cleaned skull and a few vertebrae attached, in the middle of the trail. I had my sign. Looking back, I was guided to the raccoon hide. I decided it was a gift. My thanks to a subscriber to my YouTube channel, you may be watching now, who suggested as much, and because they left only enough skeleton so I would know this hide was the same as the first two. That evening on the deck of the lodge, as promised, I played a full guitar set, 20 minutes I guess, at about 9 o'clock on July 21, 2023. I advised Steve Istall of the foregoing event and of the guy pacing on the shoreline behind him, which I showed you that segment at the end of the last episode, in an email to share my story at howtohunt.com dated July 22nd, 2023 at 8:07 p.m. He didn't play it, but that's when I sent it. I also added this. Lastly, if you are chosen by an intelligent non-human species to interact with them, one placed in that position might consider how anyone should behave as a representative of the human race. I recommend being the best us that we can manage and try to be that person with everyone, human or otherwise, all the time. Isn't that a good use of our fleeting days anyway? End of quote. Easier said than done, I know. when you are mindful and when you are able, if you are interacting with these guys or with anyone else, I think that's the thing that makes this so interesting is anyone interacting with them realizes they are not the same species as humans. And so you are an ambassador when interacting with them, and they chose you. You can't choose them. They run away from all of these researchers, so-called researchers. They choose the people they want to check out. So if you are one of them, consider playing the role of ambassador with whatever spiritual faith or idea that you may have, or none, it doesn't matter. But just be the best example that you can be, because you're interacting for a whole lot of other people. That's what I think anyway. And the conclusion of that is, if we can do that with another species, then we also prove that any given human being is able to do that. And we should be able to do that with our own species. Going on. I told my next door neighbors about this, and they mentioned a couple of oddities they had been noticing. They said they'd seen goldfinches around their bird feeder, but only on Sunday mornings, and Baltimore orioles, but only when the husband is on the phone to his daughter. His wife said she has been hearing odd grunts, moans, and children's voices, etc., in the evenings when she is in their yard. There are no children on this hillside. I am their neighbor, and Barbara and my kids are all grown. We're the closest neighbors they have for a half a mile or a mile, and depends on the direction. You're not going to hear any voices up here, of humans anyway. The next day, on another walk, I discovered that 4 or 5 rows inside the field of standing corn on the north side of the lane, in a 10-foot diameter area, all the stalks were broken over in multiple directions at about a foot above the ground to make a large open area. From here you go straight west, down the hill, up the hill, and at the top of the hill there's the corner of a cornfield, and a lane makes a T. And just inside the cornfield, just a few rows, there's this flattened out area. Not completely flattened out, but broken over at ankle height, or knee high to me. The ears of corn were not removed from the stalks, so this hadn't been done in order to feed. Deer don't do this. This hole in the field was right beside the location of the 3rd inside-out raccoon carcass. From this spot on the hill, for anyone tall enough to see over the corn, there is also a clear view of the deck on the lodge. From the lane, I could see the chair I sit in on the deck. Interesting. That's the end of chapter 26. We're on page 116 with about 15 pages to go in the manuscript. And I think I'll leave it here for now. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.